Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivardhari. Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Vishnupada Mahamsa Harividagachara Jastathara Satasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagvatam Ki Swami Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru Ji Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading text 30, 29 also, but it has no purport, so we'll chant together text 30. Dakshayana samshanuta Gadato nigamam mama Anvichathanupadavim Bratrinam Bratre Vatsala Dakshayana samshanuta Gadato nigamam mama Anvichathanupadavim Bhatrinam Bhatravatsalah Dakshayana Sangshanuta Gadato Nigamam Mama Anvichattu Padavim Bhatrinam Bhatravatsalah. Mitrasain. Dakshayana Sanshanuta Ganto Nigamam Mama Anvinichano Padavim Bratrinam Bhatravatsalah Dakshayana Sanshanuta Gadato Nigamam Mama Anvinichatu Padavim Ratrinam Ratrivatsalah. Ladies. Dakshayana Sangshanuta Vinichanu Panavim Ratrinam Ratrivatsalah. Nigamamama Dakshayana. O sons of Prajapati Daksha, Sangshanuta, please hear with attention. Gadataha, who am speaking. Nigamam, instructions. Mama, my. Anvichata, follow. Anupadavim, the path. Bratrinam, of your brothers. Bratra Vatsalah, of you who are very affectionate to your brothers. Translation, O sons of Daksha, please hear my words of instruction attentively. You are very affectionate to your elder brothers, the Haryashvas. Therefore, you should follow their path. I'm going to read the previous verse also, 29. Again, there's no purport. O King Parikshit, Narada Muni approached these sons of Prajapati Daksha, who were engaged in tapasya to beget children, and spoke enigmatic words to them, just as he had spoken to their elder brothers. Purport to text 30. Narada Muni encouraged Prajapati Daksha's second group of sons by awakening their natural affinity for their brothers. He urged them to follow their older brothers, if they were at all affectionate toward them. Family affection is very strong. And therefore Narada Muni followed this tactic of reminding them of their family relationship with the Haryashvas. Generally, the word nigama refers to the Vedas. But here, nigama refers to the instructions contained in the Vedas. Srimad Bhagvatam says, Nigama kalpataror galitam palam. The Vedic instructions are like a tree, of which Srimad Bhagvatam is the ripened fruit. Narada Muni is engaged in distributing this fruit. And therefore, he instructed Vyasadeva to write this Mahapurana, Srimad Bhagavatam, for the benefit of ignorant human society. And he quotes the verse, Anartha pashamam sakshad bhakti yogam adhoksaje lokasya janato vidvangs chakre satvata samhita. Translation. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. Bhagavatam 1.7.6. People are suffering because of ignorance and are following a wrong path for happiness. This is called anartha. These material activities will never make them happy, and therefore Narada instructed Vyasadeva to record the instructions of Srimad Bhagavatam. Vyasadeva actually followed Narada and did this. Srimad Bhagavatam is the supreme instruction of the Vedas. Galitam palam, the ripened fruit of the Vedas, is Srimad Bhagavatam. You can see how much Prabhupada loves Bhagavatam. He's taking a verse where Daksha's talking to Prajapati, Daksha's sons, and he's just glorifying the Bhagavatam. Centering on this term, nigama, from the verse. Dakshayana samshrinuta gadato nigama nigamam mama. Nigama, so there's so many things here. Nigama is a term that generally refers to the Vedas. Prabhupada refers to the third verse of the first canto of Bhagavatam. Nigama kalpataror. We know what a kalpataru is. Yes, a desire tree. Taru is a tree, and kalpataru is a desire tree. From the Vedas, you can get all kinds of things. It's a big warehouse. How to get stuff. Better than Kmart. Better than all those places. It can give everything. Within all the universes and beyond the universes, it can give you everything. Just in sound vibration, it's there. So it's a desire tree, kalpataru. And Nigama Kalpataror. So it's the Vedas are that, so it's the Vedas, the Vedic literature. Nigama Kalpataror. But amongst the products or the possible things that one can get from such a desire tree, there's Galitam Palam, the ripened fruit. Just like I was sharing yesterday, the Jewish lady who came after the Rath Yatra question answer session and said many things, but I really like this message of a relationship with God. It's to this day, it's how can you become part of something where there's no relationship with God? I mean, for our Western culture, I guess, Christian culture at least, there's it's intrinsic. But in any case, her expression was, we don't even talk about it. We don't hear about it. There's nothing written about it. There's no relationship with God. My goodness. I mean, follow laws. Laws given by God, and you follow the laws. Is there no relationship? My goodness. And so the ripened fruit is that relationship. And that relationship is a loving relationship with the Supreme Person, Bhagavan, and all of his loving features. That's the ripened fruit, Galitam Palam. So the reference that's being made here is Narada is, at his words being spoken, are given the same term, Nigamam. Because the Vedas include the instructions, and the instructions of Narada is the instructions of the Vedas, and the instructions of Narada is the Galitam Palam, the ripened fruit of the instructions of the Vedas. So he's going to talk about bhakti, where it's not just platitude, or we won't go into it too much. People use that term these days, where it's a severe disservice to the term, but that's another topic. The real thing is Srimad Bhagvatam, the message of Srimad Bhagvatam. And just preceding this word nigamam, in the first line, Narada uses the word samshrunuta. So, hear from me. Krishna speaks the same in Tat Shrinu, hear from me, Bhagavad Gita. That's the term that he uses when he speaks. I'm going to present the most confidential knowledge. Just hear it. Like Prabhupada on one occasion said, before you see Krishna, you will hear him. Meaning, seeing, or in another place, seeing through the ears. It sounds kind of weird. But you see through the ears. Because if you don't receive through the ears, you'll see something else. You'll see mundane conception. How do we connect with transcendence? That's another. In the verse that's being quoted, it's adhoksajay. Anartha pashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adhoksajay. Adhoksajay is translated in that verse as unto the transcendence, with a capital T. Literally, adhoksaja means that which is beyond the senses. Akshaja is eyes, beyond that which the eyes can see, and for that matter, beyond the senses. Adhoksaja is used in the first canto, chapter 2, where Bhakti Yogam Adhoksajay. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yogam Adhoksaja. Notice, the harmonic symmetry of the messages of the Bhagavatam. Something over there in Canto 1, Chapter 2, and it's resonating over here. In Canto 1, Chapter 7, and it's resonating over here. Canto 6, Chapter 5. It's connecting with transcendence. He who is beyond the senses by using the senses. My goodness, because that's what bhakti means. Bhakti means engaging in practical activity, the senses contacting sense objects in devotion, based upon what you've heard. An impersonalist is the opposite. It's withdrawing the senses. Like, it's just an example that comes to mind is Prabhupada's statement: if you hold out some gold or some opulent thing to an impersonalist, like reflex, their hand goes behind their back. And the devotee, their hand is extended. But it's not in a greedy sense. This can be utilized in Krishna service. Let me engage it in Krishna service. We're not intimidated by nor attracted by opulence. If it's from Krishna, it's for Krishna, that's all. Like Chandramauli Swami was saying at the Rath Yatra, worship of the Ganges. Palmfuls of Ganges are offered unto the Ganges with prayers. It's the devotion. The Ganges doesn't need palmfuls of Ganges. What's the meaning? There's no meaning. There's no, wow, I got some palmfuls of Ganges water. Thanks a lot. It's devotion. And that's the message. That's the essence of the message, the relationship of loving service. Unto he who is beyond the senses, although you're using the senses. So what's monitoring that, and what's inspiring that, and what's confirming all of that? It's sound vibration. It's samshrunuta, hearing. So this adhoksaja, I want to go back to yesterday's verse and spend just a little bit of time with the mantra to Narayana that the Savalashvas were chanting, Om Namo Narayanaya, but it doesn't stop there. That's a mantra unto itself. Purushaya Mahatmane Vishuddha Sattva Dishnaya. Vishuddha Sattva Dishnaya. This is describing the abode of the Lord. Dishnaya, who is always situated in the transcendental abode. He is transcendental, and his abode is transcendental. Vishuddha Sattva. In Sri Brahma Samhita, the initial verses before the process of creation is described, is describing the unique position, from the invocation verse. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So that's the subject matter of Brahma Samhita, the position of Krishna. And right away it goes into Krishna's abode. Although if you don't have a good dictionary, you won't know where it's taking you, but it's taking you to Krishna's abode. And Krishna's abode is Vishuddha Sattva. Everything about his abode, it's of the same chit potency. His body is of the same chit potency, his abode, his name, Purna Shuddho, Nitya Mukto, his abode is of the same quality. So the chant that they were chanting, like we sometimes chant things and we don't really know what we're chanting. We just have faith that by chanting something good is going to happen. Like, become cleansed. Maybe become awake a little bit to transcendence. Maybe we even become a little awake to transcendence. But the message is that we chanted yesterday, and now is being discussed again today. Narada wants to take them to the realm of transcendence, and he wants to find out. He's examining them. The verse that had no purport says, he spoke some enigmatic words, as he did with his elder brothers. I have a nephew that lives in Chicago. Well, he lives in Chicago. He lives in Milwaukee, but he has a job in Chicago. He's a lawyer. He's helped us with our, when the police harass us on Harinam, a couple of times it's happened. He's there to help us because he's a lawyer. He's a First Amendment lawyer. And he's come to visit me a couple of times at the temple. And he's described me as enigmatic. Amongst our family members, I'm an enigma. They can't figure me out. I mean, they like me and think good things about me, but like where I am and what's going on, and it's puzzling to them. Enigmatic. That's the meaning of enigma. So Narada is speaking some enigmatic words. And here's some part of those enigmatic words. Some part is, as Prabhupada begins the purport, he's referring as a tactic to their material affinity, the affinity for the bodily conception. They have affinity for their elder brothers. Family affection, it's everywhere. In this world, it's everywhere. When we were at our Japa retreat, I mentioned this, I think, in Seattle. Early morning, really nice. There were a group of deer in a park, and there are people all over the place, but they're used to people being all over the place, so they were like not even bothered by the people. They were just doing their thing, eating grass, looking at each other, looking at the people. And then there was this like little baby deer, wobbly legs just enough to walk. And the mother deer was walking across this big lawn, and a little baby deer was, triple stepping it to keep up with mommy deer. And, she didn't go to school to learn that. It's just the affinity for matter, the affinity for family relation, so strong. So strong. And so Narada is appealing. This is bridge preaching. He's appealing to their material conception of life, to take them to transcendence. Krishna does the same thing in Bhagavad Gita. You're from a great lineage. Because he's a noble person. You're not, a modern American. He's a noble person. He has some feeling for living up to his ancestors and their lineage. It's a strong, powerful force for a cultured person to live with dignity and dignify the previous ancestors or the previous generations, to live up to that standard. It's kind of foreign to our modern way of living. But for cultured people, the bodily conception is very strong in that regard. And so that's his introduction, or at least how it's presented in the purport. Bratrinam, bratra vatsala. You are very affectionate to your elder brothers. And so he's pulling on that cord. Then talking about transcendence. because your elder brothers went to the abode of transcendence, or their path moved in that direction. And so, therefore, you should listen very attentively to these enigmatic words that I'm about to describe. And he's going to describe another part of the nature of enigmatic is when you speak to people who are in the bodily conception about that which is of transcendence, it's puzzling. It's enigmatic. It's based upon hearing with faith, and otherwise, Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atmabhaktau. I've been studying this verse last few days in Sri Brahma Samhita, where it's very nice. That which is available to the Vedas, but is inaccessible to those who simply study the Vedas. It's enigmatic. They'll come to a different conclusion. They will come to a different conclusion. It remains enigmatic. It remains unapproachable. Pantos dakoti satavat sarasam pragamyo vaya ratapi manaso manipungavanam. No matter how lifetimes traveling on a craft, a vimana, that travels the speed of the mind, zoom, 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 and transcendence is far beyond. So it can't get there by the mind. I mean, you can try, and people do try. I know devotees that try, but you can't get there that way. That the hearing has to convince you, and the futility of such efforts also have to convince you. But better just to hear. That you can't approach that way. So the approach is through bhakti. And then here comes that enigmatic word that is misused in modern society to the point where it's indistinguishable. It's mush, but how it's being misused is one thing, but its real application is this nigama kalpataror galitam palam. It's the message of Srimad Bhagvatam. I'll share a little something with you. In Jiva Goswami's commentary on that verse, he makes reference to the Damodar Leela without all the detail. There's a verse where the mystery, the enigmatic nature of Krishna is described, where Mother Jasoda, on the one hand, she's interacting with He who is limitless. There's no limit to Krishna. But she's being impelled by motherly affection to discipline her child. And so, although he exhibits his limitlessness, he did this another time, similarly. Mother Yasoda looks inside Krishna's mouth and sees the same thing that Arjuna saw. She saw the universal form. I mean, the description is not identical, but she saw the whole cosmic manifestation inside Krishna's mouth. So she was taking ropes and putting ropes and ropes and ropes and ropes and miles. One of Jiva Goswami's commentaries said, because she was the queen of the king of the cowherds, she had access to all the ropes of all the cowherds. She gathered up all the ropes and tied all the ropes together, and it was still 2 inches too short. It wasn't just too short. Every time she added more ropes, it was still 2 inches too short. And some of the ladies were laughing. They were watching Mother Jasoda doing this. This is very mysterious. It's always 2 inches too short. Just accept that it's not meant to happen. It's too mysterious. It's not meant to happen. No, I must. Her motherly affection was so strong. So the verse that Jiva Goswami quotes is, Mamatmaja. She has the sense of being the mother of Krishna, who was Atmaja, born from her body. It's certainly a mystery, because he's the source of everything. So how can he be born from somebody's body? It's a mystery. You know, if you don't think about it, it's just real easy. But if you think about it, it's confusing, because he's the source. We say, okay, it's Leela. What's the Leela about it? It's the same Vishuddha Sattvam that's spoken of in the prayer by the Savalashvas to Narayana. His abode, which means everything that goes on there, is of the nature of transcendence. So we know it's, the modes of nature: tamas, rajas, and sattva. But sattva is mixed with rajas and tamas. And then there's pure goodness. And pure goodness isn't just, it's fascinating. It's not just like clean kind of goodness. It's minus the modes of nature altogether. It's not of the modes of nature. So try to conceive of that, because we don't have any experience of that. We can't. It's beyond the mind's conception. And Krishna's pastimes are similarly beyond the mind's conception. And what Narad is going to present to the Shavalashvas is beyond the conception. He's testing them to see if they can move through sound to the realm of transcendence. And we're being tested also. We're being given the opportunity. There's some enigmatic things in the Srimad Bhagvatam where it's describing Krishna's pastimes. Just like just take any one of these, the pastime of his birth. It's in the language of Bhaktisiddhanta. The birth of Krishna is Vibrahma Vilas, a seeming error, a pastime of seeming error. Because how can the transcendent Lord take birth? Or in this Damodar link, because it just seems that way to Mother Jasoda because of the intimacy of her love. She can't see it any other way. And she's not like in Maya, she's in Yogamaya. She's so exalted. Even Queen Kunti looks to Mother Jasoda and she's so exalted. I can't fathom how much love she has for Krishna, that when Krishna sees a little stick in Mother Jasoda's hand, he cries. And it's not false tears, not faking it. He's afraid of the stick in Mother Jasoda's hands. It's puzzling. If he was just faking it, she wants to discipline me, and so I now I'm supposed to cry, and he cries. That's understandable. Not that. He's afraid of the stick in Mother Jasoda's hands. And she has such love for him. When she sees, he demonstrates to her. He's unlimited. She still wants to bind him. Why? She is impelled by this seeming error. Vibrahma Vilas. He's my son. He's born from my body. I've got to bind him. I have to discipline my son. After all, if he grows up and there's no discipline, he's a thief, and what's going to happen? I have to discipline him. It's the action of Yogamaya, and this action of Yogamaya is the same as the action of Vishuddha Sattva, the same as the action of hearing these subject matters that are enigmatic. And then it's a question of how we respond to that subject matter that we hear. There's a number of options, and then there's degrees within those options. We could say, oh, rubbish. That's one response. Then you could say, oh, very nice, and kind of empty-headed. Oh, very nice. But the kind of transcendence of Mother Jasoda is out of love. Or like a nice example, very simple story. The Brahmin and the cobbler, and there he is, Narada Muni again. He's going to see Narayan. Just quick gloss of the Leela, the pastime. They both ask Narada, "Oh, you're going to see Narayan. Could you ask him when I'll get freed from the cycle of birth and death, when I'll be able to go to the spiritual abode?" So, sure, I'll ask that question on your behalf. Narada asks the question, and he's told by Lord Narayan. Of course, there's different versions, but one version is that Brahmin, he's so proud. Even I'm the Supreme Lord, I don't know when he's going to come back to the spiritual world. In other words, it says many births. But that cobbler, he'll come back very quickly. The end of this life, he's coming to my abode. You can tell him that. So Narada goes back and says to the Brahmin, "I went to see Narayan." "Oh, did you remember to ask him that question?" "Yes." "What did he say?" "Well, he said, that Brahmin is so puffed up. I don't know, even I'm God, I don't know how long he's going to take to get back to the Godhead, to go to the spiritual world." "Really?" He said like that. "Tell me what he was doing when you were with him." Because Narayana said, when they ask them the question, or give them this statement and see how they respond. Tell them that I was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle, and see how they respond. So the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord was not accepted by the Brahmana. He's putting the elephant through the hole in a needle? Rubbish. Lord, I don't believe you. But when the cobbler, he said, "Oh, how wonderful. My Lord is so kind. I have this awful profession. I'm dealing with leather. And he's taking me back to him. How merciful is my Lord." And my dear cobbler, please know that he was passing an elephant through the eye of a needle. He said, "Oh, how wonderful." Then how can you just accept that? I just told you something that it's enigmatic. It's contradictory. An elephant doesn't fit through the hole of a needle. And he picked up the banyan tree seed or pod. It said, inside this, there are hundreds of banyan trees in a seed form. Each one of them can spread out miles of distance just within here. So if banyan trees can fit, hundreds of them can fit inside this pod, the Supreme Lord can easily place an elephant through the eye of a needle. He has inconceivable potencies. And so it wasn't just, in other words, it wasn't just blind faith, his response, but it was understanding the nature of the Lord. And how is that possible? Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhaktau, through bhakti. And the beginning of bhakti is through the hearing process, through association with bhaktas, and one can hear, if one can hear submissively, pranipat, prashna, and seva. If one can hear in that way from one who is carrying bhakti, then bhakti can grow. And as bhakti grows, then the inconceivable can be understood. It still remains inconceivable, or of transcendence, or adhoksaja, or vishuddha sattva, of the nature of transcendence. But one can have access to that by disclosure through the medium of bhakti, through sound vibration. It's really nice giving class, seeing Lord Jagannath like this. It's really fantastic. And next to him is Subhadra. I can't see Balaram, but I know he's there. His internal potency. is Yogamaya potency. They're both smiling, attracting us to come to that position. So Narada, or the followers of Narada, are the conveyors of the message of Srimad Bhagvatam, and that message of Srimad Bhagvatam is the ripened fruit of the wish-fulfilling tree, Chintamani Prakara Sadmasu Kalpa Vriksha Lakshavratesu. The whole of the spiritual world is made of Kalpa Vriksha trees. But the residents of the spiritual world in Goloka Vrindavan, what's their desire? Service to Krishna, that's all. They don't go to the desire tree and say, I need a new computer. Or something. I've got a pain in my knee. My mind is troubling me. They simply want service. And the wish-fulfilling trees and the Chintamani, the whole of the spiritual world is there to orchestrate and facilitate through the internal potency loving service to Krishna. So entrance into that realm requires cultivating the mood of unmotivated loving service. That's our message. We're getting the opportunity to prepare ourselves, whether it's this lifetime or countless lifetimes. Better not to be in the proud Brahmana position, better to be in the humble service position, where Krishna will be pleased with that mood. Not blindly following. Read very carefully the message of Srimad Bhagvatam. Prabhupada would use the phrase scrutinizingly study. Hear the message very carefully, just as Narada is encouraging the Savalashvas. As those before us, our predecessor acharyas, that's the lineage that we can be proud of, as the Savalashvas are proud of the Haryashvas. It's not a bodily identification, it's a spiritual identification. We're part of this wonderful sampradaya. Persons who have, before us, entered into the realm of transcendence by the same method that now they've made very kindly available to us, and especially to our founder Acharya, who therefore were deeply and forever indebted for that gift. Remain faithful to those predecessor personalities and hear very carefully the message that Narada is going to be delivering to the Savalashvas, which I think we're here tomorrow. Any discussion? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. That's not enough. I often notice or experience like two sort of contrasting mentalities when it comes to understanding transcendental subject matters. On the one hand, you have a type of mentality which may have an unwarranted faith in his own intellect. And therefore, I will only proceed forward in transcendental subject matters if my intelligence can really understand it properly and capture it, and so on, which is a little bit unwarranted from your explanation because of its transcendental nature and therefore the enigma of it. Then on the other hand, you have another mentality that's like, anyway, it's inconceivable, and I'll only understand it when it's Krishna's mercy. And therefore, a tendency not to maybe apply the intelligence so much to really try to understand it a little bit better, using the intelligence, which is kind of meant for that purpose as well. And then oftentimes, persons of these contrasting mentalities won't see eye to eye in terms of their approach to transcendental subject matters. So my question is, how do we harmonize or balance the degree in which we would use our intelligence, apply our intelligence to understanding transcendental subject matters, without becoming blind to the fact of the reality of its transcendence, and therefore a limitation in which our intelligence can actually appreciate the subject matter?
Well, two things come to mind immediately. One is we followed the instruction of our founder Acharya, who said, try to understand. And the faculty with which we try to understand is the intelligence. So it's an instruction. It's not optional. And a second is different. We utilize that which Krishna has given us. Different persons have different faculties, different capacities. Some persons can dance fantastically. Some persons can sing fantastically. Some persons can, do different things fantastically. Some persons have greater intellect. Some persons have lesser intellect. And so it's not like the person with lesser intellect loses or something. They're just like barred forever until, somehow they get sufficient intellect. But they should utilize what they have according to their capacity. Like this nice example of the cobbler, he understood from that simple little, and that's all it, the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord. His understanding is, you could say, more earthy as opposed to more lofty. But, within that earthy is certainly very lofty. No problem. But because it's not blindness, it's a revelation according to one's nature, according to one's capacity. So both have their place. Follow the instruction given to try to understand. And some persons have a greater intellect capacity to understand, and some persons a more intuitive capacity to understand. And, they're not like, this one's better than that one. They're both, the fruit of both comes from bhakti, not from acumen or endowments. It's devotion. And that's a mystery unto itself. Jitendra, you got something?
I was just thinking of that verse 10:10. To those who are constantly devoted to me and worship me with love, I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. So, and then I was also reading in the Bhagavad Gita that the empiric process, which he's talking about, but also devotional service just by hearing and partaking. It seems to me that we're convinced ourselves, but to convince others, you need the empiric process to, like we're dealing with the outside world, and they're doubting. Does that sound right?
Well, maybe it's your choice of words that I have a little hesitation with, but I think if I take the essence of what you're saying, yes. What Prabhupada did, this is my understanding, is he addressed those invested with limited conceptions, limited material conceptions. He addressed accordingly. Not by empiric, but by, scripture and reason. There are many cases, I'm sure you're familiar with them, where Prabhupada would say, you've got your scripture, I've got my scripture, so we could just disagree with one another about scripture. Let's just talk common sense. And he would put the scripture to the side and speak common sense and persuade by common sense. So maybe that's what you mean by empiric, but if just use common sense. Unfortunately, many people are stubborn, and unfortunately, many people don't have common sense. It's very, very impoverished in that department. So it's hard. And then some people are just dishonest. They can acknowledge this, but then not move, go back to their stuck position. So it's a challenge. Something else? Yes, Mr. Singh.
Hare Krishna. Bratri Vatsala, out of affection for their brothers, Narada used that, and you touched
Yeah.
on it. I was really expecting more in Prabhupada's purport about that it's, there's that verse Kapila speaks to his mother that attachment is what causes us all of our problems. But when we apply that attachment toward a sadhu, then that's the ticket out. Mahatsivam dvara mahur vimukte. You touched on it all toward the end about.
Well, specifically, Narada is presenting Nigama. His words are Vedas. And the elder brothers have adhered to Narada's instructions, which are the Vedas, and so they're of transcendence also. And so their affection, the affinity for transcendentalists relieves one of the affinity for matter, just naturally so. It's very simple. Just become attached to those who are very elevated in transcendence or elevated in devotion to Krishna, and that can draw one away from affinity for matter. So Prabhupada has specifically spoken of it as a tactic, because to whatever degree they're bodily conscious, although they're chanting this wonderful prayer to Narayana and incredible austerities, there can still be affinity for matter, bodily identification, and it's very strong. But there was something else that I thought of when reading this, that I thought you were going to bring up, which is the phrase Vatsala, Bratra Vatsala, is the same same root as Vatsalya. Vatsalya rasa is parental affection. And these are younger brothers having Bratra Vatsala towards their elder brothers. So the Vatsala doesn't just mean parent to child or superior to subordinate, and the affection that one has although Vatsalya rasa does, the emphasis is upon that the quality, as in Krishna's quality of Bhakta Vatsala, his affection for his devotee. And although he's the superior and the devotee is the subordinate, in Krishna's eyes, he places the devotee superior to him. The affection of the devotee rules how Krishna conducts himself in relation to his devotees. So again, it's this enigmatic dynamic of how important it is to have strong relationships with devotees, and elevated devotees in particular. Strong relationships with them, great affection for them and affinity for them, and by that, the slackening of the bonds of material conditioning becomes easy or within reach. There's spiritual strength that's not there if it's just empiric. You want to add something?
Yeah, it seems like what you're getting at is that he's saying, look, your brothers are loving you too, your older brothers. That's another draw, feeling it's coming from above, and you have natural affection. It's
implicit. Explicit is you have affection for your elder brothers, and the other, naturally, if there's affection for elder brothers, I have an elder brother, and I know he has affection for me. He thinks in terms of, I'm your elder brother. You're my kid brother. That's all. That's the relationship as far as he's concerned. He has affection for me. Okay. Anything else, ladies? Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I had a question about, you were mentioning that Yashoda, Mother Yashoda was saying when she found that, she just couldn't tie Krishna up, but she didn't accept, or, she kept going on. And I was trying to, how do you know when to accept something's meant to be or not meant to be versus going ahead and trying to be determined and still pushing? How do you know that?
We've discussed this in the last 2 letters that you've written.
Yes.
Yeah. And the answer that I can give you isn't different. In the case of Mother Yashoda, she's not a conditioned soul. She's Shakti Tattva. She's in another category altogether. So for her, there's only one thing, and that's her loving affection for Krishna. And for us, we're conditioned souls, and a fault is over-endeavoring for something mundane. It's a fault. It's a cause of bhakti being destroyed, over-endeavoring for something mundane. So the principle for us is recognize our capacity. We make and according to our capacity, we set some goal, and we strive reasonably without compromising our devotional core. We strive within the resources and abilities given to us by Krishna for achieving something that seems reasonable, and we strive for that. And if it comes, or the result comes or doesn't come, that's Krishna's department. If you recall, I was explaining, ours is the service department, and Krishna's is the results department. And don't get confused. You don't take Krishna's position and say, I'm going to get the result. That's false ego. Kartaham iti manyate. So where you draw the line, which has consistently been your question, is recognize your capacity, set a goal that's within reason to reach within your capacity, provided Krishna says yes instead of no, or not yet, just within reason. And you give your sincere effort unto Krishna. And then if the result comes, that's up to Krishna. If the result doesn't come, it's up to Krishna. And you haven't failed. Not that you're bad or something wrong with you or something like that. And it may mean you just continue. It may mean recalibrate. It may mean a number of things. It may mean, just not meant to be. It could mean a number of things. But to what degree you endeavor is what I described. And you wait to see if Krishna smiles and says, you did a very nice service, but not yet. Or whatever Krishna says, whatever the indication is. And therefore, we need guidance from persons that understand us and have a closer relationship with Krishna and a better understanding of how to apply oneself in devotional service, and can guide us in that territory. And since that's an area that you have expressed now the 3rd time, it's an area that you have a little struggle with, take some guidance. And look at those monitor points that I mentioned at the first part of the discussion. What's my capacity? Is this goal realistic, reachable within my capacity, and so forth? You consistently do those things without neglect of your core sadhana, where it gives you spiritual strength. That's like a big mistake that's sometimes made. Born of false ego, I just need to do a little less sadhana and a little more of the endeavor part. then we're running on the material energy instead of the spiritual energy. It's not a good idea. Short term or long term, it's not a good idea. Anything from the ladies' side, or we're done? Okay. Last question.
Thank you. So that's how you would create some type of balance in your life.
Yep.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Balance. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna, Brahmachari, Ashram, Temple Brahmacharis, please meet